Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, Bow and Arrow Tarot. So this video is in response to a question from one of my subscribers. This is a new channel for me, and I already have some wonderful subscribers who are very loyal, who comment and who always give me encouragement and let me know when my readings have resonated. And one of my subscribers reached out to me, and I asked them if ever they had a question that they'd like for me to do a reading on. All they had to do was to ask, and so they did. And the question was, for those of us who want to give to humanity, who want to do work for the betterment of humanity, how do we begin our path? How do we start on that path? And basically, how do we know which path to follow if that is what we desire? And I thought that was an excellent question. So this is what this reading is all about. This is a response. So instead of this being just, the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to read this for the subscriber, who is a Pisces, by the way. So if you're a Pisces, right, this message may resonate with you. And I'm hoping that the reading itself, the answer to this question, will resonate with anyone who's been asking themselves that question, because we're going to look at how do we get on that path, right, and use this reading as an example. All right, so let's get right into it. How do we get on the path of our desires, right? How do we get on the path of our desires? So for this reading, I'm going to be using the THOTH deck. And this deck actually I got in 1992 when I was beginning my own path. Right? I was 20, just 20. I was beginning my own journey, right? I'd already read tarot cards for quite some time, as it was passed on to me by my mother when I was younger. And I had begun to look at other sides of philosophy, read into other philosophies, religions. I started to get into meditation and yoga, right? And I wanted to get deeper into reading the tarot to help people. That was my path. These tarot cards have been with me ever since. You know, part of my path led me to live in Europe for quite some time, back to America, and to meet a lot of different people and have a lot of adventures. But all along, I always lived my life with this purpose of wanting to help others as much as I could and to be a good person, you know. And being a good person is helping others, right? So I think the first thing you do is you start with yourself, right? You work on yourself, right? You can't help others unless you have done the shadow work, right? A lot of people want to help others and they jump right into perhaps maybe reading tarot cards or doing something like that in the esoteric field because they feel they have this desire to help people, but they haven't done any shadow work. They haven't done any personal development, right? And so, you know, it becomes difficult. They find it hard to help others, right? So knowing yourself as much as you can and facing yourself and living in the moment with your own journey and troubles is the first and foremost step to exercising and learning empathy, to understanding what another person may be going through, right? You can't help people unless you can somehow understand what they may be feeling, right? So that's the empathic side of yourself that has to be developed. And some people have that naturally, right? But even if you have that naturally, it is a very You know, taking responsibility for others and helping others on their karmic journey is a big responsibility, right? And it shouldn't be taken lightly. And even if you do have skills, if say you have clairvoyant skills or psychic skills, you have the gift of sight, you know, where you can see into someone's life. You have the gift of empathy and feeling, where you can feel someone's emotions. That's not enough. You have to also work. You have to research, you have to study, you have to learn about the ways of the world, you know, philosophies, religions, you know, learn symbolism, always better yourself and better your skill, right? You better your skill. You never take it for granted that you're a master, because it's at that point that you lose your skill. You always remain a student. And in so doing, right, you always remain open and true, and you will always then be very, very virtuous in your work and sincere, right? And what you'll find is that as you help others, they help you, and it becomes a symbiotic relationship. And that's really where you want to be, where the energies flow back and forth, right? You should never feel as though you're only imparting. You should always come away, even when you're helping someone else, as though with a feeling that you have increased or expanded your own capacity for love or understanding, right? So that's the first step. But let's get into a real reading now. I'm going to look at some of the perhaps some of the energies in this particular Piscean life who's asked the question. How can we get on her path, karmic path, to help those around her? Show me a clear message. I'm going to clarify this spread once I'm done laying the cards. This is a special spread that I have been doing for many, many years. It's based on a life spread. Based on a tree of life from the Kabbalah. The tarot, a lot of people don't realize, it actually has more correlation with the Kabbalah, tree of life, than it does with any other field of esotericism, right? The astrological aspects that we applied to the tarot cards, that was a later concept that came in the 20th century. Right? It was not, astrology was not originally entwined with the tarot. It was really more, it's more to do with the tree of life and the Kabbalah, the numbering, the symbology, right? So if you really want to understand the deeper meaning of the tarot, you should read up about the tree of life and the Kabbalah, the three pillars, So that is just a little, I don't like to go into that because a lot of people, history is subjective, right? It depends on what you read, what you study, etc., who's ever the authority, right? But, from my understanding and learning and teaching, the people I've studied with, You know, if you start to learn a little bit about the Kabbalah, you will become have an infinite better understanding of the tarot, and especially if you're a reader, you will become, you know, an infinitely better reader in terms of like understanding some of the deeper meanings. So we're gonna get right into it here with this. This is a seven column spread. And this can be done, this is a spread you can use for a year, a life, right? Where you have the middle pillar. You have three pillars, 1, 2, 3. There's the middle, 1, 2, 3. So the after and the before. So I'm going to treat this like kind of like a life reading in a little bit, in a way for this question, right? For the Quran who's asked this question. In terms of getting on that path of being perhaps a healer, a helper, someone who wants to give to humanity, you know. So how do you find your strengths? How do you find your skills? Let me just take a moment with these cards. I think that, okay, so this yearning comes from, you know, I'm just going to start to read, right? So I feel like you had really, and I'm going to be speaking to the Quran, right? The person who asked the question. But this could be for anyone who resonates with this, especially if you're a Pisces, if you've been thinking about this question, if you're tuning into this video, you could resonate with any of the aspects I talk about here, right? Okay? So you can put yourself in the position of the person who's asked. But this is coming from a person who's had a very stable, you know, I feel like you had a really stable home life, right? Coming up, when you were growing up, you had a very stable home life. You had you know, there was a lot. I believe that perhaps you had, you were blessed with one of these families where you had father figure perhaps, or an older brother that was really someone you looked up to, right? That really was a very passionate person. There's a lot of love in your family and a lot of dynamicism, it seems to me. A lot of communication. Probably came from a family that had a lot of communication, especially and you guys got along together. So you were blessed with a very happy upbringing. I think, though, at some point something happened that was really like devastating to you. It came on a spiritual level. So let me explain now so you understand. You have four rows, right? The ground row, this is earth or discs representative, right? Here we have cups, right? Or emotions, your emotional, right, level, right? Your emotional dimension to you. Here we have the next level up is air. So your mental, right? Your mind, how your mind thinks, what your some of where your focus, your attention, things like that. And then up here you have fire energy, right? Which is wands, right? And that's the different levels in your life. And here we go through the progression, right? And so here we are early on in life. And sometimes you want to, in terms to understand how to get on your path, you have to know where you're coming from. And I think you came from a home life that really exhibited a lot of love. But then when something happened, right, the stability was there. Here we go. The stability was there in your home life. The communication, Mercury and Sagittarius, right? So you had this kind of jovial, you know, I think you came perhaps from a family that was very open-minded, right? Very open-minded about different ideas and esotericism. There may have been that hippie, maybe a little bit of a hippie family, it could be, right? But very stable, very loving. But then something happened and it crushed your spirit, right? It was cruel. It could be that there may have been some kind of betrayal, or somebody turned out to not be what you wanted, what you expected them to be, right? And it kind of really left you feeling just really like sad, feeling betrayed. You know, you feel like coming up, I think probably you're coming from a background where you feel like you've always been the rebel. Your emotions have always gone out to the underdog. This is Prince of Swords energy, right? So he's fighting off a lot of bullshit. He's riding ahead. He's motion, right? So Prince of Swords is the air aspect of air. right? Princes are air, swords are air, so it's air aspect of air. So it's the rebellious teenager. It's the teenager that it's the My Bodyguard teenager. I don't know how, some of you out there remember that movie My Bodyguard, the kid who had that big kid, he was his bodyguard. It's that kind of energy, it's the gentle giant teenager, but he's willing to help his friends. I feel like you came from that, so it's good to understand where you come from, to understand why you asked the question. I feel like probably very early on in life you felt like you wanted to help people as a result of this, right? You came up already with all of the right ideas and the right morals, and then when this event happened in your life, I think it kind of triggered you to say, okay, well, this is what I want from my life. I don't want this to happen to someone else. I want to help people. And I think that that's where it came from. So I think your first step is to dig into, if you want to help people, right? If you want to really do this in terms of like a path, and you do it properly, right? And where do you apply your energies? You were already given everything you knew as a child. Go into your childhood and remember those people that started you on the path in the first place, right? Remember those people. How what about them, right, was so endearing? This could be your parents, your uncles, your aunts, your cousin. It could be whoever, your loved ones, could be friends. But it was those people who formed that kind of very stable home life for you, right, where you had this great communication. First, go back and remember what it was about those people. Always remember your ancestors. Always remember your mentors, okay? Your mentors will give you a way to start your path. They will, because they've started it before you. And sometimes you can look back on their lives and their experiences that they've shared with you, and it can give you a clue on how you need to go, right? I believe that you've also had a period as well where you've really worked through a lot of emotional issues, right? You really are the Queen of Cups on a very real level, so on the ground. So this is Earth, right? This is your material world, your material plane, but you have Queen of Cups. It could be where you ever a nurse, where you ever a caretaker. It could be that you've worked with children before, right? On a very real level. Now I hope this resonates with you. Please let me know if it does or it doesn't, because I'm just bringing in the message, right? But I feel like also you've had a chance in a very tangible way to work with people. It could be something, it could be your career, it could just be something you do on the side. You could be you could do something perhaps once a year. You do a soup kitchen for Christmas or something, but it's something very tangible. You do fostering care, or maybe you do tutoring or something like that, right? So there is somewhere in your world, I believe, that you've already had an experience, right, of doing something very tangible that is a very nurturing, right, very loving, where you've really employed that side of you, right? So that was an opportunity for you to do that. Also remember that, right? In those moments, you may not have realized that what you were doing was your talent, but that is your talent. It is your talent. If because not everybody can do that. Right? So also go into those moments. A lot of us don't know where to begin, but a lot of us don't realize that we've already been exercising our talents, right? The magic that we're born with, what we're meant to do. We've already been doing it most of our lives, but a lot of times we do it in an environment where it's not taken serious, right? So you don't realize, hey, actually, I'm really fucking good at that. This is what I'm really good at. Remember also those times when you've worked with people and you've really been vulnerable and you've brought out their vulnerability. How did that feel for you? Was that the moment where you felt like you were really doing something good? Remember that. Try to remember also that is a skill, that is a talent. Exercise that muscle, right? That's an emotional muscle. This Ace of Wands, right? In the very, very beginning, you came into this world fiery. Even though you may be Pisces energy, you already came into this world wanting to do something different from the rest. This is Ace of Wands. So it's starting, invention. It's the invention. It's the spark. It's when when the dude realized how to make the fucking light bulb. You know what I mean? It's heavy, right? It's your like inspiration for what your vision, right? And to have this be your very first card, I think it's something that's deep in your soul. You came into this world with this in your soul, right? So right now you're coming just basically, you're coming just recently, probably from a period of having some abundance. So some abundance may have come into your life as well. So a lot of times for all of us as well, this can happen when we start to get abundance and we start to get some. It could be that you've come from like a period that was maybe a little bit tumultuous, maybe, right? Or just, coming in. Now remember, this is, I'm kind of going quickly through early days life, teenage years, 20s, 30s. I don't know how old this person is, but I'm just talking about, roughly those periods, early, mid, and the forward. This would be what's to come, right? So we'll get to that. But I believe you've recently come from a period where you felt adjusted, you felt quite even keel, right? You have adjustment, which is the same as the justice card right here in your emotions. So I feel like you're at a point in your life where you've just really matured. You feel like you've done the shadow work. You're now, and I think that this is why you're asking the question as well. What do I do next? How do I go? Because I think you're ready. I think you have everything you need. You feel like you're ready, right? So now you just need that self-esteem, and you just need to remember what it is you're good at and just go for it, right? Ace of this as well. I feel like perhaps recently you've also, or you may just be coming into a period where you've got some money, you've got a little extra money, and you're able to do more of the things you've always wanted to do. I realize that you can't see all of the cards. Let me see if I can move this back a little bit, folks. Hang on a second. Okay, I hope that's better. I just adjusted it so you can see all of the cards. There's two cards down here, one poking here and one here. This is the Chariot. So this is the Ace of Wands I was talking about, because you start here, right? And then up here was that Cruelty card, but we don't need to see that anyway because we're getting past that. But here you have Ace of Wands, and that's what I'm talking about. I think also so a lot of times, when we come into money, right, or we get to a point, especially when we get to a point in our lives where we're feeling really good, we want to share that, right? And especially when we're coming into a period where we have some, where we're feeling, we have some support, financial support. We don't have to worry about paying the bills, right? It's those times in our lives as well where we feel like wanting to give back. It's a lot easier. When you're struggling from check to check, it's hard to be, to be giving back. People do it. Yeah, of course you do it. And the thing is, you give back to humanity every day you wake up, and you are a kind person. So that's what it talks about in terms of, you start with the person in the mirror, right? It's no good if you're an asshole all day to everyone but then in the evening you go do a charity event. Right? So then you're just, then where is the actual virtue? And here's the card for virtue. Love it. Where's the virtue in what you're doing? So, don't underestimate the power of the individual. The power of the individual. If every person woke up in the morning and just looked in the mirror and said, today I'm going to be the best version of me that I can be, the world would be a great fucking place. So don't take it for granted that that's so easy to do, because a lot of people don't do it. All right? So that's all I'm saying, is that if that's the type of person you are already, which I believe you are, which is something you are in your solar ray, but now you've come into money, a lot of times what you can do is you can reach out, right? You reach out to those around you as well who are like-minded. But anyway, I feel like this is where you're coming from, and this is probably some of the energies that's kind of spurring you on now to want to solidify your vision. There's love. You feel love. You feel a lot of love right now. I feel like you've been surrounded by a lot of love, and it's making you want to give back. All right. So remember to look at the issues. So when you're trying to decide, when there's so many, sometimes we have a lot of things that we want to work on, and we try to decide, we don't know where best to begin, right? Always begin with those things that are closest to your heart, and those things that you've had to struggle with. right? So the Princess of Swords talks about she's the earth aspect of air. So she's the first level of training your mind and training yourself and your personality to be wholesome. And so she's fighting off outside influences, and she's standing her ground, right? And that's, the beginning. It's like when you first learn how to have your own opinions and defend your own opinions, right? Learning how to defend your own opinions, learning how to have confidence in yourself, and when you speak, and when you put your points across. It's the first things that we learn about communicating with others, which can be sometimes feel like a fight. If you look at that card, she's a young maiden. She's on, she's up high, so she's in the clouds. She's in her thoughts. That's the air aspect. But there's tornadoes and things and all kinds of things coming at her, right? And she has to defend her little perch. She only has a little perch there. So it is the beginnings, and it could be that perhaps that's where you want to concentrate your energies as well. Remember what it was like when you first began. Remember what it was like when you first started your path, right? Where would you have wanted the help, right? Where would you have wanted the assistance? If you've had a difficult time in life, you want to give back. Sometimes, although it's hard, look back on your own life and remember, the trials and tribulations you've gone through. And, in there, you will find the seed of the teacher that you can become later on, because you've witnessed it. You've experienced it, right? There's a lot of love. There's a new opportunity for love coming through as well. That's going to help. Ace of Cups is absolute new and outpouring of love coming through. And you'll find that as you start, when you're on the right path, you'll start to find that your soul, sometimes this can be outside love, but it can also be your soul. When you're on the right path, a lot of times when you've come out of a dark period, or you've come out of a period of doing a lot of shadow work, and you're on the right path, and the minute you've decided the minute your ego, right, and your spirit have come in line with your soul, right, there's this kind of love, like this love. You just feel love. You feel love for yourself. You feel lovable. This can happen sometimes to people who've never ever felt love for themselves, but finally they've done a lot of work and suddenly they feel great. They're like, oh my God, is this what it feels like to like yourself? Right? Is this what it feels like to love yourself? It can be a new experience, especially if you've had a hard life, right? It's not always about other people loving you. Sometimes it's just about that trinity coming together. Yeah, right? The earthly ego, the spirit, that is imbued, and our divine soul, our immortal divine soul, right? Our immortal soul, the divine spirit, and our immortal soul, when they come together with our ego, and our ego, here we go, is ego. So that's the Leo card, the lust card. This is the ego work. This is the shadow work on the ego. So you've worked on that too. So it's coming in line with you, right? I think that's probably why as well you're being called. Because I feel like, you have, look at this, ego work. Ace of Cups, loves, 10 of Cups, Princess of Swords here, beginning the shadow work. Princess of Swords is the same as the Page of Swords. A lot of people talk about that as being like, a page is coming in with a message, and that's your general tarot reading, right? Like, you have these tarot books with these like two sentence descriptions, because they're reading a lot of times in those scenarios, people are reading the tarot to get kind of like a representative of very simple everyday things. Oh yes, a note's going to come in. Someone's going to reach out to you with a message. And but the cards, the energies of the cards are so much deeper, So when you're reading for deeper issues, right? That's why and this is why you study. You study the Kabbalah. You learn the Kabbalah. And then you begin to understand the deeper nature of some of the cards, Okay, and again, that goes back to what I said earlier. If you want to be someone who helps others, you always have to approach that as a student, right? That you are a student of life. Only a student of life, someone who remains a student of life, can really help others, because you will never know every situation. You will never be able to help every single person. So you are always a student, right? And you don't want to limit yourself. And in that way, you continue to learn. And otherwise, you stagnate, right? And your knowledge is nothing. You know, the more you learn, the more you realize you know nothing. So if you stop learning, then you truly know nothing, right? So remember that. And that's why I say the Princess of Swords. Is a lot of people would say, oh, well, that's not what that means. That means it's a message. Well, actually, no, there's a deeper meaning to it. The Princess of Swords has a very deep meaning, and I love it. And as well, you have the Prince of Swords here, too. So you've done a lot of mental shadow work. Coming into here, right? Coming into your future months, possibly years, right? And we're talking about a question for life, right? In terms of a life path. So this could be over the coming years. You're going to be definitely High Priestess, the Priestess, your psychic ability, your clairvoyant ability, your understanding of the darkest, the deeper sides of life, the darker, some people would say, the occult, esotericism, all of that is going to be very heightened. You're going to be focused on that area in your life. Yes, be a student of that. Learn as much as you can about it, right? And go where your heart leads you. Your intuition will lead you to what you want. It will lead you to the area that you're best in. Remember, like I said earlier, go back and remember what you've always been good at that perhaps you haven't looked at that way. There is love, Prince of Cups at the top. I think someone's coming in that's going to help you as well. You'll have someone you're very close to. It. I believe it could be a masculine energy, but this person is a real lover, a real sensitive soul. Could be a Cancer. Cancer energy, doesn't have to be a Cancer, but Cancer energy, right? That man Cancer energy, the kinds, they're very devoted, very loving, very sensitive. I think that's someone who's going to come in for you. You're going to feel really supported by that person. Aeon, which is the same as the universe or the world card, right? In this deck, because I'm using the Thoth deck, it's slightly different than the traditional. So Aeon means you are on the path, right? You're on the right path. You're on your divine path. You feel it. You feel it. You feel it in your heart. You see the world differently. You're going to have a different look on the world, right? Your focus will change. Allow it to change. It'll get bigger. Allow your focus to get bigger. Allow your focus to see the whole picture. Remember to place your own development in that picture. So as you help others develop, your own development is always there too. That's part of the karmic path. I feel like you're going to really feel that kind of like in your stomach, in your gut. It'll be a very visceral feeling that you're doing the right thing. Follow that energy. Go with that energy. At the very bottom, you have the Chariot. You'll be moving. You'll definitely be moving. I think you're going to get success. You're going to start to get reaffirmations as you get into your field, as you decide where you want to focus that beautiful energy and magic of yourself. You already know, but you need the reaffirmation. They're going to come. It's going to move. You're going to be moving fast, right? Moving fast on your vision. Could be that you're actually moving. It could be that you may physically move, right? Are you ready for a different location? Listen, let me tell you something. I'm a Sagittarius. I get wanderlust. I've had a really, wow, and I lived in Amsterdam for 7 years. Good God. I could write a whole blog about that alone. That was one of the most amazing times of my life, and what I learned and the people I met was amazing. I lived in England, travel, move. If you have to move to see your vision, move, because there's nothing like traveling to start an adventure, to have a whole different chapter in your life. If you live in the States, even if you're just moving to another state, you don't have to move to another country, just move to another state. Some people haven't been out the same fucking neighborhood their whole lives. Move. Get on a train. Take a train. And I'm not saying this is you, Quan, or this is anybody, you know, but I'm saying this is the experience people have. It could be that your gift is just helping other people realize that they can leave their neighborhoods and they can leave what they've known all their lives and do something new, right? Virtue is there. You remain virtuous, all right? I think this is an affirmation card and an admonishment. Remain virtuous. This is Sun in Aries. Aries meaning Sun in Aries is virtuous. Aries is the child, as rambunctious as Aries can be, and annoying, people say, and you know, that's the ram. You know, it's the ram, and they don't, you know, they leap before they think. They are impetuous, but where will we be without the Aries? Where will we be without our children, who keep us young? Who remind us that even through all that chaos, they are only being children. Their virtue is, you know, since is true. They're just being themselves. Be yourself. Always be yourself. Always remind yourself to be yourself. You know, remember the dragon is watching. This Quarant watched my beauty community drama tarot reading that I did, the dragon and the lion. The dragon is always watching, you know, and reminding you, are you being true to yourself? As long as you're true to yourself, you'll be on the right path, okay? And that's a gut feeling. Being true to yourself is a gut feeling. People are like, well, how do I know? You'll know. You know when you're not doing the right thing. You'll know. You feel it. You feel it in your gut. People try to ignore that feeling and act like, oh, it's just, you know, it was a bad Reuben that I ate for lunch. No, it's not. It's you telling yourself that you're being an asshole. Listen to that, right? Be aware and listen to your own voice. Ace of Swords coming in. You're going to get notifications, right? It's going to remind you. You're going to get victory, right? Very real. This is swords on the air sword level of your life. So this is very real, tangible conversations that are going to come in that are going to let you know that you're doing the right thing. You're going to get victory. You're going to get real tangible sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? When people, you know, are going to show you their admiration, they're going to physically tell you, thank you, thank you, thank you. They'll write to you. You may have a blog where people respond to your blog. You may have a website, and all of that's going to come through, and it's going to make you feel great about yourself and about what you're doing. There'll be times where you'll feel frustrated. Okay, futility. There'll be times when you feel frustrated. There'll be times when you feel like there's nothing else. I don't know what I'm doing. Where do I go? Fall back on your principles. Fall back on your beliefs. The Hierophant is your belief system. Once you have established your belief system and you know through the High Priestess and the shadow work you're doing with the world, right, by continuing to learn and continuing to be a student, then you will have faith in your belief system that you've established. You'll have faith in it, and faith is the magic. Faith is the magic. All we have is faith. Choice. What we believe in, what we choose to believe in. Ultimately, that is the only really thing that we have in the universe that's different from any other thing in the universe. That's singular in its uniqueness. It's choice. And so therefore that's the magic, right? So that's why, you know, you have people that, as long as they believe, if you believe, you know, American, especially, you know, American Christians, I love American culture for that, you know, because I'm an American, but American culture, you know, you talk to a good church going woman, right? Her faith is so strong that she exudes magic. Her faith, she exudes what you would call a magical feeling to her. She has wisdom. You don't have to agree with her beliefs, right? It's not her beliefs, it's not her belief system that gives her the magic. It's her unshakable faith in it that gives her the magic. And so the Hierophant reminds you that faith is the magic. Have faith. If you've done the shadow work, if you've worked and you've established your belief system and you know it's virtuous and true, right? And true to your spirit, then practice it. Have faith in it. right? And it will help you through periods of futility, and you will come out on top. All right, that's the final card. Isn't that beautiful? Universe is the final card. You start with the wands and you end with the universe. Why? Because this is your karmic path, and you know it, and you're on it, and you're doing all the right things to follow it. All right. I hope this resonates. I hope this answers the question to a certain degree, right? I can't tell you exactly what to do, but I can tell you the message the cards tell me on how to find out. I can't tell you, no cards or no spread can tell you what your purpose is, but what the energies can tell you is how you can go about finding it out for yourself. Right? That's what the reading is for. So, thank you so much for that wonderful question to my subscriber. I didn't want to mention her name because she didn't say whether or not I could, but she is one of my early regular subscribers who comments, and I love you so much. And I told you all you had to do was ask, my darling, and here you are. So please please comment if this resonates. If it doesn't resonate, tell me what you think. Sound off below, like, subscribe, share this video to anyone you feel like it could help, your friends, your family. All of that helps me grow my channel. And like I say, to all of my subscribers, if there's any questions that you have, or you've been sounding off, you've been commenting, and you like my channel, you have a particular question a general question you want answered that's for the good of the collective, right? The good of the nation, the Bow and Arrow Tarot Nation. All you have to do is ask. Bye-bye. I love you guys.